Hey, everybody. So when Nick asked me to come out here to talk about my experience with the different organizations that are here today, I said yes immediately because the success that we've had is largely due in part to some of the people in this room today. And it feels like it wasn't that long ago that I was sitting in those seats trying to figure out how am I going to franchise my business. And so I'm in a pretty established industry, a pretty well-established industry with franchise players. And so the choice to do this wasn't one that I took lightly. So I'll talk a little bit about my business, and hopefully this was a picture of me when I was playing baseball, and the one next to it was when I was working in banking, to being in the pit doing oil changes, to holding discovery days with anywhere from 5 to 20 buying groups, looking at our brand. So hopefully by the time I'm done talking, we can see how we got from point A to point B. At our discovery day, we try to engage with the customer, with the buying groups, and see how do we pinpoint how these core values affect them. How do we get them to see why our brand, as an emerging brand, is something that we should look into, and when they have other choices that are more established. And this is a quote that I attribute to Jeff, but I don't know if it's an actual Jeff quote. They're not going to remember the things you said at Discovery Day, but they're going to remember the way that you made them feel. And so we go through this process in Discovery Day with the dinner and the presentation. And I'm not a deck guy, so if there's any franchise consultants in the room that recognize some of these slides, I repurposed it for, so it's a testimony to Fran Devco. So for us, as a company that's in a space that's well established, we start off our Discovery Day with a little exercise on top of mind brand awareness. Because as Jeff touched on, when you're building a business, you need to do something that moves the needle. I think that every great business is built out of a void in the consumer space. You're fulfilling a need, you're solving a problem. And for me, I didn't like the direction that the larger players, Jiffy Lube, et cetera, were kind of going. And so top of mind brand awareness is, if I say fast food, what do you say? McDonald's. When you hear fast food, what do you say?
Wendy's.
Chick-fil-A, right? So it was an interesting exercise because we've been franchising now for exactly 12 months. Our first Discovery Day was the end of March. We signed our first franchise agreement April 14th. And when we first did this exercise, it was McDonald's across the board. And when you're setting out to disrupt an industry, or you're setting out to create a business that's meaningful, you need to be able to penetrate that. And so as we went along and did these Discovery Days, Chick-fil-A started being answered much more. And McDonald's is about as established as a franchise as you can get. You're going to hear that answer across the board all the time, especially when it comes to franchising. But Chick-fil-A was able to create a model that stuck out to people in a sense that now they're starting to get that top of mind brand awareness. And so with my business and what we were trying to do, with the direction that I saw our industry going, it was important to me to be able to move the narrative. And for me, the easiest way to do that was franchising. I had 10 corporate stores when we first started as a franchise. And the biggest worry that I had was, are my processes uniform enough? Are they replicatable enough? Are they able to be done by someone who's not me, someone who's not jumping in the pit, someone who's not spending, my evenings working on the website and things like that? And that's really where Fran Devco came in, and Franchise Genesis and Nick and his team. So for me, never having been in franchising, never having worked for a franchise, I had no clue about any of it. And so we went through this process, me and my team that set out to build the franchise organization. And we went through some FSOs. We interviewed different FSOs. And ultimately, when I had the conversation with Nick and Jeff and another gentleman who's not here, Sung Om, who's part of Fran Devco Southwest, Northwest, I think offices are merging, but those people who had a wealth of experience, especially in automotive, because Sung had worked in driven brands, which is Mako, Meineke, and Midas. That was the experience, the knowledge, and everything that I saw that was necessary in order to take that leap from being a owner-operator to being a franchisor. And your role does change. When you own a business and you're actually running the business, it's very operational, especially if you're an operator at heart. And I'm an operator at heart. But now that we have franchisees in the system, your role changes. You are a mentor. You're support. You're a phone call in the middle of the night. Hey, I'm worried about this real estate process. I'm worried about this. And Fran Devco, this is not a linear path either, because when we had 5 franchises, I'm picking up the phone every single time anyone calls me. We have 75 territories sold in the last 10, 12 months. You know, those days are gone. We have a full system now. We have stores opening. We have grand openings. We have real estate, project management, construction build out. And when you're at a one person at the top, you have to build that team. And that was some of the stuff that Fran Devco put in place for us to be able to have that org chart. And an org chart on paper is great, but in practice, it doesn't always turn out the way that it says on the slides. So you're often finding yourself figuring out, okay, what hats can I wear? What hats can I make this person wear? And that is another space that Fran Devco has been a huge part of our franchise journey, because their experience with multiple brands, well, this is a situation we've seen before. This is what we might have done in this situation. This is what we did here. And the phone is always picked up. I had to laugh when Jeff mentioned Nick rushing to conflict, because Nick's version of rushing to conflict usually is a phone call with someone waiting on the other line to be merged in to take that conflict head on. So that is definitely part of these relationships and growing as a company and a franchise organization. This is a slide from Fran Devco. I did not want to build an internal sales team. I did not want to be a part of that process. I didn't want to be dealing with that side of the business. And so the Fran Devco office handles everything from start to finish. And then we have a handoff call when we sign people up and bring them into our system, and they move on from that side to our side. And they don't miss any leads. They call every single person who comes through the platform. And then the ball is really in our court with our discovery day, with our weekly founders call, with the content that we put out. But that isn't to say that all of the work, you know, it is a push and pull, but all of the work that's done on your end, you're always having your partners there as well to help guide you on what best practices are, which is a lot of what franchising is. I have referred to franchising as paint by numbers, and we've tried to create a model that we can have our operators replicate as best as possible. I don't think this slide actually pertains to this presentation today, but I stuck it in there to kind of beef it up. Like I said, I'm not a big deck guy. I think the best way for me to bring value here as someone who was sitting on that side, thinking about franchising, trying to figure out who we're going to go through this process with, is probably Q&A, and I don't know if I have time for that. I don't know what my time slot is. Yeah, so, and this slide obviously is fully from Fran Devco with our rep's name and everything on it. So I could take any questions about any part of the process, because it's been, you know, we've officially been selling franchises for 12 months. We did just renew our FDDs like Drew was talking about. Last week was a busy week for us getting that 2022 out. We're registered in all the registration states. But where we were 12 months ago to where we are right now is night and day, and couldn't have done it without Franchise Genesis or Fran Devco. So.